It is that time. It is that Monday morning time for Caffeine Corner. And look who decided to show up. I mean, after what she did to me last night, the girl has balls the size of Texas. Cheshire.
I keep them in my chest.
Your chest are going. I mean, you got cojones, girl. You got cojones. But anyways, morning.
Oh, I got you good. I got you good
did.
last
That's okay.
night.
That's fair
That
enough.
was funny.
Just
For
remember,
anybody who hasn't
revenge
seen
has
it,
no
go look.
expiration date.
Oh, come at me, bro.
I was really thinking I was going to wake up this morning and just be inundated with messages from people. I didn't get a single one, so nobody
Oh
cared.
no,
To be
everybody
honest with
knows.
you, or
Well,
worse,
yeah.
people be like, "Hey, Steve, wise decision, man." Because you know what, you never had any problems till Chess came around. It's good that you dumped her, man.
That would have been really funny.
I would have loved
That would
that.
have been. I would have loved that. That would have been great.
Imagine Bull Air talking mad shit. Damn, Steve, so glad we decided. You decided to not make her part of
What are you
that.
talking about? Bull likes me better than he likes you.
Oh, I know he does. Yeah, that's the funniest part. I know he does.
For anybody who hasn't seen, anybody who doesn't know what happened, it happened on Twitter as well as on a GDC, like the Great Good Debate Community channel live stream.
Yeah, live in real time. Go watch the Unleashed last night on the Great Debate Community channel. Because Cheshire basically not only threw me under the bus, but ran back over me on 4-wheel drive.
To be fair, you kind of did it to yourself. You were like, hey, look, everybody, look at what Cheshire's doing. Go wreck her. And I was just like, they're just going to retweet it.
Yeah, that's what they did.
Everybody retweeted it, and we were like, how could you do this?
It's definitely the Streisand effect. Oh, well. Anyways, still people have no idea what we're doing for our first episode, so it doesn't really matter. They can guess all they want, but only we know. So, okay, so let's dive into this thing. We've got a couple things we want to go over today. Some words, like we usually do. Jessica, where do we want to start? I mean, we got 3 main ones that we want to do. Do you have a preference or anything? Because I think some of them lead into the other ones. So
yeah, I think they all kind of lead into each other. So it's basically like Yoda. You know, hatred leads to fear, fear leads to anger, anger leads to suffering, and it legitimately does not matter what order you put them in.
Okay. Well, how about we start with the big one then, because the other ones kind of tangentially relate to that one, which would be the topic of the actual show. Usually we work backwards, but I think maybe today we'll actually just dive right into the topic of virtue venti, or a cupful of.
Actually, it wouldn't be a bad idea maybe to start with tribalism, because tribalism kind of.
Your show now.
Yeah. I think that tribalism, basically, you don't really have virtue signaling unless you have a tribe.
That's true. I mean, you need some kind of tribalistic thing to have virtue signaling too. So, okay, let's start with tribalism then.
Okay, so I've got the Urban Dictionary definition, and Steve has the technical definitions. So, tribalism on Urban Dictionary says a non-economically based type of social structure, usually associated with a high focus on personal individuality, close interpersonal relationships, an integration with a natural environment, and a loose social hierarchy. So it's a group of people. It's a group of people that are all around either some kind of identity that they all share, or some kind of ideal that they all share. Whatever that thing is that's grouping these people together. And there's usually a hierarchy of some kind, meaning like there's somebody that's kind of everybody's sort of following along with, or a couple of people that everybody's following along with, and then scales down from there.
Yeah, I mean, the tribe usually comes from this kinship that people usually have, probably related to evolutionary biology, I would imagine, right? Because when people move from they were hunter-gatherers, and it would be beneficial to group up to actually hunt. You know, such a tribe would be something along the lines of a clan, or having some kind of ancestry or some kind of commonality for social, cultural considerations. So,
and things that are different are scary.
And people don't like change. Yeah, people don't like change. People don't like difference. People like things that they're related to. We've known this for a very long time, that in the social cultures, people tend to relate more to people they identify more with. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have multiculturalism, or doesn't mean that people don't have a lot of people that are not like themselves. But there is, this is a scientific fact, that we do tend to, as humans, relate to people that we have more in common with. It's just a social thing. We're social creatures. And so,
well, yeah, who wants to hang out with somebody they don't have anything in common with? What do you talk about? I mean, what do you be social with somebody that you don't relate to?
Have you had somebody like that, Chet? Have you ever known somebody that you're so incongruent with them, you're so diametrical opposite that you have absolutely nothing to talk about, like a bad date or something?
I've been in those situations, but I'm one of those people that's pretty malleable. So I can kind of find something to talk about with somebody, even if it doesn't necessarily interest me that much. But I've definitely, the way it kind of manifests for me is that usually if I find somebody that I don't tend to have much in common with, I'll just talk about whatever it is they're interested in and then just not talk to them anymore.
Yeah, no, I get. No,
and
I
be
get
like,
that.
we don't really have much in common, so I don't really have anything to say to you.
I think that's how most
or I just don't care about your opinion.
Right?
Yeah,
you really have nothing of value to give to me. So, yeah, I get that. I think you're right on that. So, the way the tribalism things, usually, I think we talked about a couple weeks ago, we talked about oversubscribing. And I think that oversubscribing is kind of directly related in some ways to tribalism. And let me explain why, my argument on that. Oversubscribing was where the people injected themselves into other people's lives such that to a degree that they thought they were integrally a part of it, right? So I'm so invested in Chesh's life that if she does something, I feel like it's a slight to me personally kind of thing, even though in Chesh's case it might be a little bit more because we are actually we're friends and we are going to meet up to be in real life friends after we meet up. But some people, like, and you're on the internet, you don't know a lot of people very well. You know them by a face or an avatar. And there's a lot of people that think that they know you better than they actually do. And this is ubiquitous across the internet. This happens frequently with people. And I think with this tribalism is that you try to fit into a group, to have a specific way of behaving, or to show them that you're loyal to whatever clan or group that you're in. For example, let's say, well, real quick, if somebody was tribalistic for the Great Debate community, right? So the Great Debate community is a community. It is a bunch of people that want to be able to have conversations and discourse. And if somebody oversubscribes to the Great Debate community, where they're just like, defend something at all costs, and they're just trying to say, hey, Steve, look, I'm loyal to the Great Debate community, I'm defending you at all costs. That's not what I want. That's tribalism. That's tribalism. Yeah, and I see this not so much with us, but I see with other people. But go ahead, yes.
Yeah, there's something to be said for what we have here is arguably a tribe. Like, the community made a decision for us. And we're like, yeah, no, we want the community to make this decision because it shouldn't be up to one individual. But we do have a hierarchy. We've got, if you have a community, particularly based around a YouTube channel, like let's say Markiplier's got a huge following. That could be considered a tribe. Everybody has the same commonality of enjoying Markiplier for one reason or another. Maybe it's because they enjoy hating on him. Maybe it's because they enjoy his videos. Maybe it's because they love his smooth, buttery voice. Point being that he would be the top of that hierarchy, and there is a hierarchy that exists. It would be him, and then it would be the people that he works with. You might consider Jacksepticeye maybe part of that hierarchy in some way, and it's a large, like, gaming Let's Players community, and he is somewhere within that hierarchy. And then there's another tribe within that tribe. That's where you get into, like, flame wars, and where you get into, like, a really good example of this is, like, anime waifus. So, like, people who are fans of anime are one big tribe, arguably a tribe of people who really like anime. And then you've got the people who like this anime or this anime. And then those tribes are now within this overarching tribe. And then you've got another tribe beneath that that's like, well, I like this girl, and this girl. And that's how you get the waifu wars, which is the wars of who is the best girl. And that's where you get into flame wars, where it's like, no, you don't like this anime well enough, or somebody likes anime, but they only watch the sub and not the dub, and then you get flame wars between, no, the sub is better than the dub. And then you've got the other people over here that come in from the side who are like, well, I read the manga, and I'm going to spoil everything for you guys, because f*** you.
Yeah, people pointing out that, and I don't have a problem calling the Great Debate community, in some ways, tribe in a general sense. Tribe can be used.
A tribe isn't always a bad
but
thing.
not, yeah. A tribe can be a group with shared interests and considerations, right? But these words convey other things. You wouldn't call for example, like let's say you had a group of people that were really into like remote controlled drones or something, like drone community. I wouldn't call that a tribe, right? That's not the word I would be used, because there's different connotations. Community, yes. So I mean, if you want in the most sensu lato general sense of the word, I don't care if they think the great community of people is a tribe. I don't have a pejorative connotation with that. But I think the word that best describes it as community. But tribalism is an overwhelming adherence to a tribe that suspends, I think, common sense, logic, reason, and defend at all cost, where you're just trying to show your loyalty to other people in that tribe, right? Because you want that tribe to protect you. You want that tribe to hunt for you. You want that tribe to protect you from the wolves when you hunter gatherers were going around and hunting. So there was a benefit to show people, hey, look, I'm on your side here. Don't let the evil wolves get me, kind of thing. So I'm not against you saying it's a tribe in the way she's describing it, but I think it's probably not the way we generally use the term. Does that make sense, Chesh? Would you agree with that, or?
It depends on, the thing is that a tribe is just a description. It's not going to mean one thing or another yet. It's not until you get into the interworkings and dynamics of the tribe where it can start to become problematic. Even having a hierarchy is not a bad thing. Most social situations that involve at more than two people have a hierarchy, and sometimes even between two people there's a hierarchy between those two people. So it all has to do with like interpersonal relationships. It's only when people start either oversubscribing or taking things too far or getting too attached that now this is part of your identity. And once it becomes part of your identity, you run the risk, which is, again, it's not a bad thing necessarily, but if you're not aware of it, you run the risk of being so attached to it that you'll do anything for it. And you see this a lot with religion.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, when it comes to religion, then tribalism is something that definitely occurs quite frequently, because you see adherents to religion will defend it at all costs. They put that as a way of saying that ontologically, in the way the world exists, that there are groups out there that you have no choice but to defend, or else you're excommunicated from the church, right? You're excommunicated from the group or the tribe. You're kicked out.
Or the tribalism of protecting your own.
Heretical. What's that?
Yeah, or the tribalism of protecting your own, even though their behavior should not be acceptable.
Yes. So
like protecting priests.
Yeah, well, to me, that's a form. That's a form of tribalism. I mean, when you're moving one priest around from one parish to another parish, that's definitely, protecting the clan, right? Mm-hmm. So, where do you want to go on tribalism? I think a lot of people actually do understand tribalism without that much explanation, because we see it happen a lot of times. We see people want to fit into groups, and because they want to fit in that group, they have to say certain things, do certain things, act a certain way, not upset the apple cart. And I got to tell you right now, the Great Debate Community and Non Sequitur Show, that ain't going to be it. If you want tribalism, you ain't going to find it there. What you're going to find is people upsetting the apple cart, and we're going to be talking about upsetting the apple cart, especially on the Non Sequitur Show, for a lot of different topics, right? We're going to be talking about it, just all kinds of cool stuff.
I think there's going to be one thing that will essentially banner under a little bit with non sequitur, and that will be like kind of the tribalist mentality that we're talking about. It might apply to this, provided it applies in a healthy way, and it's that providing the discussion and protecting that discussion, that no matter what the discussion is about, provided it is in fact a discussion, should be protected. The merits and the merits and the value of having a discussion, even though that discussion might be a risque topic, in that we don't want dishonest actors around muddying the waters and detracting from what otherwise would be a really good conversation to have, or potentially a really good conversation to have. We don't want to be like, oh, well, we can't have that because there's too many people who aren't going to be honest about having the conversation. So I think in that way, we might end up being tribalistic, in that in the chat, people will be like, well, you're not being an honest actor. We're not going to waste our time with you.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. We have no time to waste with dishonest actors. People that just want to talk about the character assassination about various people rather than talk about the topics. Nobody has time for that. So if you want to take the term tribalism to relate to defense of the discourse, then yes, I'm okay with that. Defense
I think
of the
that
discourse.
Yeah, and I think that will be
God, I got a weird hair
probably
that's
sort
on
of
my eye.
the.
I'm not like imagining things. I'm not like swatting away like gnats going.
You're trying to get those glasses that you haven't been wearing off?
Yeah, no, I've got like one hair that's just like for some reason, I don't know. Sorry,
Somewhere on your face.
I can, somewhere on my face. But you know what happens is when you like wearing contacts, right? So I kind of lose a little depth perception close. So I got one hair somewhere. I just can't find it. People are like, Steve's losing his mind. He's, it's caffeine.
But yeah, I think when it comes to like the ethics, I don't know if that would be the right word, the ethics or the what the community wants from the show, and kicking out essentially anything that's not going to be productive or is going to detract from what the goals of the show are, what the standards of the show are. So if the standard is that we have a topic and people are in the chat trying to cancel the topic because they're like, how could you possibly have this person on? Or how could you possibly talk about this subject? Well, how do we get anywhere if we don't talk about the subject, right?
Yeah, that's a good point, because we've seen, and this has gone on for years. This has been since day one of YouTube. There are people, we've talked about cancel culture before. There are people out there that just don't even want the topic discussed. We saw it, about a year ago with the ACA.
Yeah.
So that was exactly the same thing. There was people out there shutting down conversation on a topic that had value, that had merit to be discussed. And it wasn't until about a year later we actually were able to discuss it on this channel in a intellectual adult kind of way. But there could have been so much more, but it was being dragged down by dishonest actors who
right.
And this isn't even hyperbole. There was a video that actually was from somebody, and I'm not going to say their freaking name because I don't even care about them, and I don't want to give them any
recognition.
What is it? Recognition. But they actually said, and you guys might remember who it was, and if it is, go for it. But I mean, let's just play this game. Who said this? They basically said, if you don't agree with me, you're a transphobe. Period. That's it. If you don't agree, end of discussion. Period. You're transphobic. That's it. That was their entire video narrative, is that there is no discussion to be had. Nobody should be talking about this. This is the way it is. If you disagree with me, you're a transphobe and you need to be canceled.
Which ends up completely derailing the conversation. Oh, I remember who it was. But you end up completely derailing the conversation by doing that. You're no longer having a discussion that could matter about the topic that does matter, and you're not helping anybody by doing something like that. Because now you're having a completely different conversation. Now you have to have a completely different conversation about how that can't possibly apply, and then defining things that realistically should never have had to have been defined. We already know what these things mean. So
absolutely,
it essentially, we don't want stuff like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if, and I'm not going to dictate it, but I wouldn't be surprised if, given the mods that we're probably going to end up with over there and the new thing that we just instituted, which I think should carry over to non sequitur when the community made that decision, to, if these things come up or if people are behaving in that manner, then you time them out, explain to them why they've been timed out, and then you allow them to come back and see if they rectify their behavior. And if they don't rectify their behavior, out you go.
Yeah, and that's how it's kind of going to be too. And that's not like, I know there's some similarities with like being cast out, but there's a higher standard to be had there. And we want a higher standard.
Oh, it's not like they're not allowed in the comments section.
Oh, yeah. But even in the comments section, there's a higher standard to be had on any channel. If you go to a person's content when they're live, and you go in the live chat and you start talking about anti-Semitic stuff, 99.9999% of the time, you're going to get removed, as well as you should, right? Okay, unless you're on a channel that's somehow promoting it. That's, I don't know how, because YouTube doesn't allow.
There's some really good comments that I've had to take out of the Discord that were going to be put back on the non sequitur show because they were a little bit too homophobic, even though they made really good points. I was looking at one of them and I was like, I really don't want to remove this. This is a really good point, but you're being really homophobic, so I have to. Sorry.
Yeah, and I get that, and it's a shame too, because there are people that had legitimate points, but when you throw in racist, homophobic, and things like that in with the comment, it just devalues what you have to say. I think it adds nothing to it. If anything, it distracts completely from it.
It essentially what it ends up doing is, yeah, it's a detraction. It allows people to latch onto a point that you weren't making, and even if you aren't homophobic or you aren't transphobic or you aren't racist yourself, it doesn't help the discussion. There's a reason why there are some words that I try not to use, and I have slowly been able, like, not only do I try not to use them on air, but I also have been removing them out of my personal speech in private also, because they no longer mean what I mean when I say them. So it's not productive anymore to use the word because nobody understands what I'm saying, and I have to go back and explain myself, and I'm spending a bunch of time trying to reiterate what I'm trying to say instead of actually getting to the point of saying what I'm actually saying. But people make the same argument about swear words, and it doesn't really apply. So I think this is a topical conversation that we should have on Nonsec about language at some point.
Oh yeah. Oh, we are going to bring in some language people. Obviously, we've talked about Dapper Dino and a few other people. So I have Dr. Michael Jones. I'm sure he would be more than happy to talk. He's a professor, or he was a PhD in language, so he'd be perfect for that. And I happen to really like the guy a lot.
And Chris Crane makes a really good point.
A few times.
Chris Crane makes a really good point. Yeah, there's a difference between detracting opinion and disruptive behavior. Yes.
Totally.
And you can have both at the same time. You can have a detracting opinion and disruptive behavior and get kicked for one, but not for the other.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we promote various opinions and different opinions. And by the way, if you ever see anybody disagree and they get removed from a mod merely for disagreeing, let us know, because that should never happen.
Yeah. My DMs are open.
So. And anybody who says otherwise is lying. They're just outright lying. Anybody who says you disagree, on non sequitur, you disagree on.
Oh, sorry, Cheris. I said Chris. I'm sorry.
Chris.
I apologize.
Yeah.
My glasses failed me.
You're not allowed to disagree on non sequitur show. They don't understand non sequitur show. That's the show is made to have disagreements. This show is made to talk about how discourse is the best way to have discourse, I think. And then other shows that we do, I think, are the actual disagreements, right? So we actually have things like Unleashed or whatever we do. We talk about different topics. So yeah, I think each kind of thing that we do has a different purpose to an overall arcing thing to explain to people what I believe and Chesh believes, and I think as a community we believe should be the way we should have conversations. And I think a lot of people do agree with that. I mean, if you don't see the community that way, you don't see what we're trying to plan for the non sequitur show, let us know your opinion on it. I'm happy to say, well, what do you think we could do different? What would you like to see on it? I haven't really had anybody tell me otherwise. The only thing I got feedback on is let's not have so many flat earth debates. I got that.
I think everybody was on board for that. I don't think there's anybody who was not. And besides, Fight the Flat Earth has been doing well with that on his channel. We don't need to double.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, I don't think we need to double here. There's other discussions that I think will be similar. We're getting into that we could, we'll take we have a different niche that we're moving into. Flat Earth.
We've got a couple of different things. I don't think we're going to take Flat Earth off of the table entirely because that's not productive. We want to foster the conversation. Yeah. So if there is something that is worth talking about or someone worth talking to who will actually, show up.
Yeah, I mean, there's some I'll watch more than others, right? I mean, like I actually watched most of what I could from the Red's Rhetoric. Rad Vlad. And that was, again, Red's just pointing out the same things we always know, but that's fine. It's factual and correct. And then you have somebody who's just not understanding it, which is generally how most flat earth discussions go. But then you have on the opposite end of the spectrum, the type of debate that I tried watching the other day, which was T-Jump and Voton. And I basically wanted to bang my head against the wall repeatedly until I passed out. I mean, there was just absolutely, for both sides, nothing of interest. It was just two people that didn't even know anything about these subjects having to have a debate about something neither one was qualified for or prepared for. One of them actually said, "Oh, I didn't prepare for this." Shocker. Guess who that was? How do you have debates and you don't prepare for it? I don't even get that.
Anyway, we don't want to be tribalistic in that we're dictating, but we do want to have a sense of community and to have that you are a tribe. You have that sense of community. It is a type of tribe.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
But a tribe in itself is not negative.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people will try to relate it to a negative connotation. Well, look at that. They're having a tribal over there, therefore it's tribalistic. No, not the same things. But again, I think the community is a better when we want to convey certain concepts. I think the term community works better. I mean,
it's more descriptive.
Tribe, yeah,
it's more descriptive.
Yeah. And we just wanted to get across that tribalism comes from a history of evolutionary biology, anthropology, social constructs. And I think it leads into some of the other stuff we start getting into, which is the next one we're going to be talking about. If you're ready to move on, Chesh.
Yeah, let's go.
All right. Next one. Very similarly related to tribalism, mob mentality.
Which also actually goes with, along with oversubscribing. You want me to read it?
You want to take? Yeah.
Okay, well, again, we have two different definitions for this one. This one's really a little bit more vague, and then we'll get into a little bit more something a little bit more specific. So this one is a group of 3 or more people who act with a negative group consensus to show strength in numbers. It's a bullying tactic a little bit.
Yeah, and I don't like, and I was telling Chess before, I don't like that particular urban definition, and the reason why is because we're talking about mentalities, right? A single individual can have a mob mentality. You don't need 3 or more people to have a mob mentality, I don't think, right? I could want to fit into that pack, and I want to say, hey, I'm going to fit into this group, even though you don't even have to have the group around you. You don't even have to even identify what the group is. But if you have out there somewhere this things that people are talking about, and you're just trying to identify, and you're going like a bandwagon fallacy, right? You're jumping on the bandwagon.
Yeah, you're jumping on a bandwagon.
Yeah, exactly. It's called groupthink or herd mentality.
Yeah.
I don't think that needs 3 or more people. I think an individual can obviously do that.
Well, an individual can join into a mob, but you can't have a mob of 1.
Yes. Yeah, of course you
can pretend to have a mob by having a bunch of like sock accounts or something, but you can't have a mob without having more than 1 person. However, 1 person can choose to join a mob without needing the mob there to necessarily sway them one way or the other.
So what happens when you have a groupthink mob mentality? Just like for example, we see it on sporting events. The team loses. There's some kind of what they call decentralized decision making, where a person or persons or something happens where they say, oh, we're going to start a riot. We're going to start burning things. We're going to start opening cards.
Go to Montreal. Go to Montreal during a Canucks game, like the hockey team for Montreal. If you go to Montreal during a hockey game, it does not matter if they win or they lose. There will be a riot.
And
they're just excited, and people start breaking things, and you don't know why you're breaking things. You're just caught up in the moment. You're caught up with the group. Another good example of this is actually if you there are things called like overflow and what was the other one called? I can't remember. They're essentially what it is. It's like church youth group big gatherings where all of the churches in an area will buy tickets to all go to like a big stadium. And that's some mob mentality. That's some groupthink right there, where they'll play music and it's like a 3-day event, and there's a bunch of teenagers all stuffed into a big sweaty room, and then they preach at them, and then they're in there and they're like even though what's being said doesn't necessarily resonate, but because it's resonating, there's this. It seems to be resonating with everybody else, so it kind of seems like it's resonating with you too, of like, oh yeah, we're a group, we're a collective, we gotta get stuff done, we gotta do things, and then they send the kids out to go do stuff. It kind of fosters that sort of behavior.
Well, yeah, and I see it all the time with these religious organizations that for example, like I would think a herd mentality would be a good example of when you're doing something like the faith healing. you're doing something like the speaking in tongues. You're doing, like, you ever watch that video where the preacher's standing there and like these guys are like running
Sorry,
up on
it's
stage?
the Montreal Canadiens. I said the Canucks because I'm an idiot. It's the Montreal Canadiens. It's the Vancouver Canucks.
I wouldn't even know enough to
Sorry.
correct you.
Yeah, that's okay.
But you know, when
Chat's
they're running
mad
up
at
on
me.
stage and the priest goes like this, and the guy falls over and goes like this, and all that kind of revival stuff. Yeah, revival. Brandon says revival.
Yep.
So that kind of stuff. That to me is a herd mentality. That to me is groupthink. You're seeing what's you're seeing what your tribe is doing, and you're emulating that to try to fit in, right?
Correct.
And you're not making
Any type
these decisions on your own. You're
Yep.
you're allowing somebody else or group to make the decision for you.
Yeah, and then because of that tribalistic hierarchy, you're letting who's ever at the top of the hierarchy make the decision for the group. So any kind of rally, somebody made a good point about rallies, any kind of rally is meant to instill that kind of feeling. It's not always really a bad thing. Sometimes it's just cheering for a team. Sometimes it's like, oh, we need to like get our school together to do something for the community. Like sometimes these things are really good. However, they can be turned really badly depending on who's in charge and what their ideals are. And if you're not thinking about it or paying attention, it's pretty easy to convince a large number of people to do some bad shit and they'll all just kind of go along with it.
Yeah. And, and maybe you don't even need a herd to do it. There's a show that I happen to like called Impractical Jokers. And they can get you to do some pretty weird things, right? Even though they're not, I mean, I would consider them a herd. They're four jokers, but one at a time or in groups, they get people to do stuff they probably normally wouldn't do, and people see certain things happening, and they're like, oh, well, I want to be a part of this, and I'm just going to go along with it. So I think it doesn't necessarily have to be a negative thing for herd mentality, but it is abdicating your own decision-making ability, and in lieu of it, replacing it with people in a group or other individuals other than yourself. That's how I kind of look at it.
Yeah, and it essentially what you said before basically cuts it down. When you're not necessarily thinking about as an individual what's being said, but you're thinking about you're letting the group decide for you and just kind of going along with whatever the group is. And again, you don't have to physically be there. You can be part of a group online. You can be part whatever group you've decided to be part of that could theoretically be part of your tribe. Like I said, the waifu wars. If you decide that you like anime and you decide you like this particular anime and you decide you like this girl, you could be fighting other people in your same tribe about a different girl because this group of people likes this girl and you happen to go along with this girl. So if that group decides that, hey, actually we're gonna do this thing to undermine these people, even though it's a waifu, guys. And they start going by some negative tactics, you might not speak out about those tactics because you're just like, oh, well, there's nothing I can do. I'm just one person and this is a whole group, so I guess we'll just go along with it.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, not speaking out. Especially when you have groups that are large enough size where you have people in the groups that are going to be relating to a bunch of other groups and a bunch of other people. And so when they see a behavior, when they see something that is people being dishonest agents or being just even straight up dishonest, lying, manipulative, anything like that, they're afraid to speak out because they're going to be kicked out of that tribe.
Right.
Which is kind of funny, of course, because this is the opposite here. If you see something you don't like, point it out. We'll address it, right? How people point things out is the question, though. That when people come in as a dishonest agent, they point things out that maybe they're not liking, and they do so in a disruptive, unhealthy, unproductive, dishonest agent kind of way. Any value that they had for their criticisms might not be taken as well as if they brought cookies, right? So right. I think that's something to be said because by the way, this doesn't mean you have to speak out against stuff, but it just means that I've seen where there have been groups of people that notably have said things that are incorrect, but people are just like, whatever. And I mean, in our group, I'm talking about like across the internet. It
depends. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it depends on why. Why aren't you speaking out about this thing? Is it because it doesn't really matter and it's not that big of a deal? Or is it because you're afraid of being excommunicated from your tribe? Because if it's afraid of being excommunicated from your tribe, you should consider why is what I'm speaking out against something worth being kicked out of a group over? That's how you figure out whether or not your tribe is now starting to become toxic. It's not necessarily whether or not somebody does get kicked out. It's whether or not it's valid.
Yeah, that's a
So
good
like if
point.
we kick somebody out for
Very.
being like if we kick somebody out of the GDC, let's say, because their behavior is non-congruent with what we're doing, is the behavior that we're not condoning good or bad behavior? Is that justified? But you have to decide for yourself whether or not the behavior that we're not wanting around is reasonable or not.
Can you give a quick description of wafu? Real quick for
A
people.
waifu? A waifu
for
is
the
an
anime
anime girl that you like, so they're your wife. It's a waifu.
Yeah, so basically you marry, what is it, wife? What does it stand for? Wife something or other?
No, it's just it's like a Japanese word for wife. It's like if you're a waifu, like you put "you" on the end of things to make it sound more Japanesey in like in anime groups. So like somebody might say "naisu," so they've added the "u" to the end of it, so it's a waifu.
So a waifu would be so if you were like a Japanese anime girl, that's usually they're supposed to be of age, obviously, but they are depicted rather young. You would call that your wife?
That doesn't really matter how old they are. Age in anime isn't really lollies. That's all I have to say about that. But
they do exist, I guess, from what I understand. Yeah, but I mean,
okay, so like essentially, like if you watch a show,
factor, but if
you like a show, I'm gonna take Konosuba as an example. There's a show called Konosuba, and it's a comedy isekai show, which is just you're trapped in another world. So this guy gets trapped in another world, and there's 3 girls that he hangs out with. And you could like one of these 3 girls, whichever one is your favorite to watch, and you would like attach yourself and be like, no, that one's mine, that's my waifu, I like that one, that's my favorite. So a waifu is like your favorite anime girl.
Okay. I don't watch anime. That's what do I get kicked out of the tribe?
We all know it's Megami, by the way. Fuck you all.
Yeah, so I can't be in the tribe of the anime because I don't watch anime. So
yo, don't worry, we'll get you there.
Really?
We're gonna get Steve into anime.
Dude, I'm telling you, I tried. My baby's mama, she was really into anime. Well, not really into anime, but she watched anime. But one of the things she used to watch was a show called Inuyasha.
Inuyasha, yeah.
Yeah, and
yes.
I swear to God, the entire show, I'm not even freaking lying to you people. The entire show
Kagome!
was this.
Inuyasha!
Kagome! Inuyasha! Shards! Kagome! Shards! I was like, what the hell am I watching here? This is the dumbest thing in the world.
And then the show got really good when Shishomaru came out, and then Shishomaru was there for a little bit, then he'd be gone, and then the show would go back to Inuyasha Kagome!
Voltrons. We're talking cars too, not lions. Whatever happened to Voltron? That
Have you never seen Gundam?
I know what Gundam is, but I don't watch it.
Yeah, there's like, do you have any idea how many Gundams there are? Oh my god.
Gundam style. No, Boy.
Oh, that is something completely different. That's cultural appropriation right there, and racist because that's not Japanese. Actually, to be fair, a lot of anime aren't actually from Japan. So
yeah, well, you don't even speak Japanese, so you're culturally appropriated everything.
Nani?
For £5. Actually, you know what? You can use the super chats. By the way, super chats. We have there's a logical argument here. We're splitting super chats with Chesh. Chesh splits hers with Puck. Therefore, all these super chats will somehow benefit Puck. There you go. So help the doggy.
Ink Boy for help the doggy. Oh. Ink Boy for 5 says there's only one best waifu for our community, and it's Chesh. Oh, I'll give you the Chesh's waifu. I mean,
yeah,
do I look the part?
I don't understand anime. I'm not against it. Like I said, more power to people that want to watch it. I just Voltron. I love though. Yes. Somebody says love Voltron. That was a great show. But all right. So, anyways, so
the first rule of Anime Club is waifu. Actually, you know what's really funny is
like was it Sailor Moon?
Sailor Moon, yeah. So, Steve, you like giant mech anime?
Not necessarily. As a kid, I happened to like Voltron for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was. And I also like Space
If you get Steve to watch Totoro, he'll have a giant plush pillow within 3 months. Yes. Absolutely.
Did you watch Space Ghost?
Oh, yeah.
Space Ghost isn't anime, though. It's American animation.
It's not anime, but it's cartoon. That's for okay.
It's true, it's like a superhero cartoon. But yeah.
Well, I mean, is Voltron considered anime?
Yes.
Yes.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay. Well, there you go. My anime experts here.
But to be fair, I do love Space Ghost too.
Right? It was a good show.
He was irreverent. He was stupid. He was great, man.
Yes.
We
I like
all
that.
know
I think that's
Attack
my
on
model
Titan
my
is actually just a giant mech show.
Space Coast molded us so we could be irreverent, you know.
I'll fight you on that.
So I think this kind of leads into finally what we're going to be talking about for the rest of the stream, which is virtue signaling, which is something, oh my God, do we see so much everywhere, virtue signaling. And you know what's funny is probably a lot of people do it subconsciously. I think we all maybe to some degree, whether it's unconscious or not, we don't recognize it. But I want to be able to also talk about the difference between virtual signaling and like when Chesh said before about taking a stand or pointing out things that you find to be problematic or wrong or standing up for something. Some people have argued that that is a form of virtual signaling. And when we get later on into this topic here, I want to ask the audience to think about this. In the meantime, though, what if you stand for something and you call out something and you denounce something, or you say, hey, look, I don't think this is right. People are doing this and it is actually racist, or this, you shouldn't do this because it is actually bigoted or something like that. And there's a legit reason for it. Is it virtue signaling or is it not? Because I think by standing up, it is actually having an effect, because weird as it sounds, it does go into more of a herd mentality, because people say, hey, look, all these people are standing up for this. Should we stand up for something that has a legitimate merit? If things don't have legitimate merit, then it is pure virtue signaling, and that is just trying to show your loyalty to the tribe. But anyways, Chesh, what do you got for us for virtue signaling? I want the audience to
Virtue signaling. Virtue signaling, pandering to somebody with insincere yet sufficiently moral behavior. Sufficient to that group. This one specifies SJWs, but I took SJWs out because it realistically can apply to anyone. SJWs are just really egregious with it. It happens a lot with them.
They really are. Social justice warriors, and I'm using the term in the pejorative sense, not in the people that actually have reasons to be outraged and about social justice things that we all would find to be outrageous, right? So I'm not talking about them. But the people that will try to find things that will be morally outraged about, just because they want the rest of their tribe to go, oh, look, this person is, morally outraged. They fit in with us. And so that is what would be virtue signaling, expression of moral outrage, usually moral outrage. There could be other forms, but moral outrage to the tribe.
Yeah, a lot of times that will essentially be done through villainization of somebody. So, like, the tribe will be like, hey, this person's behavior, it wasn't acceptable, whether they're part of the tribe or not. This person's behavior wasn't acceptable. And so anybody who wants to virtual signal to that tribe to be like, oh, hey, look at me, I'm part of your group, you should let me in, or you should appreciate that I'm part of this group. And that they might be trying to get, they could even be part of that group trying to get somebody higher up to notice me, senpai, to essentially villainize and attack that person and be like, oh my gosh, this person is such a horrible person. And a lot of the times they won't necessarily even bring out any kind of actual argument. They'll just be like, oh no, you're a bad person because you don't agree with us. Look at me, virtue signaling, and they'll bring whatever arguments the group already has against this person, whether they've been addressed or not, and then just to essentially signal that group, hey, look at me. Look at all the I share all your virtues. I should be important to you, or you should pay attention to me. You should let me part of that group. Yeah,
there's two reasons to do that. There's one, they want to increase their social standing, and the other one's called punching up, right? When you're punch, they're kind of related too. When you punch up, like for example, I've had blogs against bigger YouTubers and bigger names, not because of who they are, not because of their standing, but of what they've said when it comes to like philosophy, right? So if I think they made a philosophical error, or they said something that's incongruent with my understanding of philosophy or science or whatever, then you say, well, hey, I think you made a mistake here. Let's talk about it, kind of thing, right? But other people, if they like let's say PewDiePie, let's take him for example, very, very big YouTuber, the biggest. People will punch up to him, even if they really have nothing of value of what they think he's actually done wrong, right? they may not think he's actually done anything wrong, but you know what? By being morally outraged by saying, "Oh, you know what? PewDiePie said this, gerbil, 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 video." They're punching up, and they're also signaling. This is actually part of signal theory. You're signaling to their tribe, "Hey, look, he said this about this specific group. I'm being loyal to the group, and therefore I am, making a video on it or saying something about it." Right? Yeah, a good example Jeff points out was my stream to Ricky Gervais yesterday. I don't care if Ricky Gervais has 3 billion views, 2 million subs. What the hell? I don't care. It doesn't matter. I've done this for other people. I made videos just for people with no subs, but he made a tweet that I found to be incorrect. So I did a video on it on this channel. It was the last thing that I did. I think it was yesterday. Yeah, and that's fine. I'm not punching up. He's not going to ever see it, although I wish he would. But I mean, I'm not getting any value out of it to punch up. I actually do believe that what he said was wrong. That's not virtue signaling, right? I'm not morally outraged that he's.
Well, the thing is that the other
philosophy that was wrong.
There's another portion to that too, right? And the other portion is the merit of your argument. I can punch up to Steve in philosophy if I think I have a good argument. But if I don't really have a good argument and I'm just parroting somebody, then I could just be virtue signaling to either people that like Steve or people that don't like Steve, depending on the situation. Or depending on what I'm saying.
Too. Yeah, I see a lot of
and
people
so,
that they don't have original arguments. They just parrot somebody else's argument.
Yeah, so you're not... The difference between what you did with Ricky Gervais, you're not virtue signaling to theists, and you're not virtue signaling to people who dislike Ricky Gervais. You went after his argument with your own argument. That's not and your own explanation. So there's no anybody to receive any signal that you would be giving out if you were, because whatever signal you would be giving out by doing that wouldn't be received by anybody that any kind of tribalistic group that you might be reaching out towards.
Yeah. And somebody Luma points out something about
people who hate Ricky Gervais aren't going to go and nobody's going to hate Ricky Gervais so much that they're going to sit through Steve's video and then learn enough about philosophy to try and take Ricky Gervais down in philosophy. It's not going to happen.
Not going to happen. No way in shit.
They don't even get through the video, let alone reading through a paper.
Lumo points out that certain terms people will say, "Hey, this person said a certain term." The a term like the R word, or this is even like the N word, which I don't use, but there are comedians that, for example, use the N word, or the people that use the N word to talk about the term, like the historical context of the term, right? So just because you say a word doesn't necessarily mean that you're using it in a very negative or racist way or bigoted way. But for example, a long time ago, way back in the day, there was a controversy between Oriental and Asian. Do you remember that, Chesh?
Mm-hmm.
So if you refer to somebody as Oriental, there'd be this virtue. Yeah, because it was.
He didn't notice. Offensive. He's just making that noise completely unrelated to what just happened on the screen.
I'm not watching the screen.
I know.
I'm actually. Oh, okay. So let me go back in here. What did you do? Well, you moved over closer to me. I just saw that.
Hello.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hello.
People were complaining that when they go full screen on their phone, the live chat scroll, which goes up the left side of the screen, is covering up Cheshire. So they want to see Cheshire.
Well, we don't want to do that. Okay, so
right. So we moved her to the middle.
You could sit with us. So yeah, I was just I thought you were doing the reeve, because people get upset. They're like, but there was a controversy there, and generally speaking, Oriental refers to objects or an Oriental vase, and don't treat people like objects. Therefore, you shouldn't refer to them as Oriental, as Asian. Might be some merits to that, obviously, but the thing is, I knew this is way back when I knew a lot of people that were Asian, and they're like, I don't give a fuck one way or another. And so why are people being outraged for me, that kind of thing? And I'm like, I don't fuck.
Well, yeah, there's that one girl who was graduating who went to prom in was it a kimono? I don't think it was a kimono. But it was an Oriental style dress, and she's really interested in Asian culture, wanted to travel there, wanted to go and work in that community. And so she went and got it done like it was a properly well done dress. And so she posted on social media because it was a prom, and people got pissed off for all of Asia. And they were like, how dare this American white
Virtue
girl, blah, blah,
signaling
blah, blah, blah,
101
blah.
right there.
And they virtue signaled because the people who responded positively to her were all of the people from that culture. They were all like, wow, that's amazing. That's really good. Like, if you go and look at the comments, it's like a lot of other angry white Americans being mad that
it's exactly
it's bizarre.
Oriental and Asian. Growing up, yeah, Oriental was the term. There was no pejorative connotation to it. Words do change, but what I think it happens is people appropriate certain terms, then want to make them more pejorative so they can have more expression of moral outrage, so they can virtue signal more. This is what I've seen happen multiple times over 50 years of my life. Okay, so if you haven't been around 5 decades, you may not see it happen, but you will. I mean, it that is one of the examples of things that I've seen change. Now, people can say, well, they used the term back then and they just didn't know it was improper. No, that's not how any of this works. I mean, that term back then was never meant to be an improper term for a person. Now, there are obviously some words that are very pejorative towards a particular race, and I agree with that. And some people want to reappropriate those, and I think that if they ever did, that'd be great too. But if somebody used the word Oriental towards somebody and they don't mean it with any kind of disrespect or derogatory, or in this case, having a kimono, that's not something they should be morally outraged for. There's no
one of the best things about that story. One of the best things about that story was that it wasn't a kimono, and people who were morally outraged for the culture were calling it a kimono, and it wasn't one.
Wasn't it a kimono? What was it?
No, I'm pretty sure it wasn't a kimono. It was like they were calling it a kimono. It wasn't a kimono, and so this young girl was expressing to them like, you're trying to virtue signal for these people, and you don't even know the difference in the type of dresses you're talking about.
That's hilarious. Well, I mean, it would be any different. Okay, let's say somebody in China, an Asian person wears 501 jeans, right? Are they culturally appropriating in America? Are they virtue? And should Americans be outraged? Hey, look, that person over there is wearing American jeans,
or like a car
icon, Levi's especially, right?
Yeah, so like it doesn't fly. It doesn't really work very well. The same thing can happen to. I knew a girl who was actually upset by the census that went out. This is a couple years ago. The census went out, and when the census goes out, it asks you what your orientation is, and so it had like Korean, Chinese, Japanese, North Korean, South Korean, Russian. And so it had a large number, and then it just had Caucasian. So it's like, there's different kinds of white people, right?
No, we just all
so she got kind of bothered by like, why is it like I could be Italian, I could be Scottish, I could be from England, I could be Canadian, I could be American.
Nobody
no, you're just Caucasian.
Irish like me. I'm
Irish. That's the thing is you could actually be American. Like the thing is that it starts becoming inaccurate, right? Because you could be from America and not be Caucasian. Right?
Well, America is much more of a melting pot, right? I mean, America is not really a race.
Well, yeah, sure. But what I'm saying is it doesn't really tell you much about your origins if you're just gonna right? It starts muddying the water. It starts like, what are you using this information for at this point? Because it's really skewed and not very accurate.
I think the only reason why that information is collected is for affirmative action type things, for demographics to see, for statistical analysis. And I think there's to be reasons for it, don't get me wrong. But I think a lot of it, like you said, is pretty. I mean, if I just check white, I mean, again, like you said, is it really telling anything about my race?
Yeah, is it telling you anything about your orientation in that way? No.
I mean, do you know if I'm Irish? You wouldn't know that.
But like you would be better off to say, is your heritage from this country or this country at this point? Because a lot of now different countries have more of that melding of different peoples from different ethnic backgrounds. But if you're asking about ethnic backgrounds, you don't necessarily like how long do you have to be Canadian if you're of a different ethnicity before you're just considered a Canadian? And if you're a Canadian, are you considered Caucasian? Right? Like it doesn't work like that anymore.
Well, no. Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. So let me ask you if later down the lines, I mean, I think we're gonna have a much more homogenized society, and I'm totally cool with that. I mean, unfortunately, that's just the way I think genetics is gonna kind of work. Is that things do?
What do you mean, unfortunately, racist?
Well, no, I mean, I like diversity. I mean,
just,
I think, I want there to be diversification of people. I like all kinds of different people. So I don't want some kind of like completely homogenized society where everybody looks like, sounds like, talks like. But I'm wondering if biologically.
Well, not everybody's going to be interested in every single culture, and I don't think it would be fair to have that kind of an expectation. So, like, if I'm not really interested in Viking culture, I'm not slighting anybody from the Scandinavian countries. It just means that's not something that interests me, right? But then on the other hand, if I was really interested in it and started adopting some of their things that they do in their culture, I'm not slighting them either. It's not a slight. No.
Well, that's why I'm wondering, a lot of people say that race is just a cultural construct, and I think there's a lot to be said for that. I mean, there's people out there that have race realism, but I just don't think a lot of those arguments hold a lot of merit. But anyways, I think we diverged from virtue signaling. I mean, they're all related, but so let's see. I'm trying to think where else we want to go on virtue signaling. There's a lot of things that I've seen. For example, when I looked into this topic, people were calling virtue signaling that I didn't think were actually virtue signaling. For example, do you remember the ALS bucket challenge, the ice bucket challenge?
Yes.
Okay. That was raised awareness to Lou Gehrig's disease. And this goes back to where I asked the question of the audience initially about are certain things just virtue signaling, or do they have some kind of value? Because I don't see the ALS being a moral outrage, right? And I don't see it. It's more than just saying, "Hey, look, I stand for this." It's trying to raise awareness, which is what I don't think that is a form of virtue signaling to me. I had a problem when I was reading that virtue signaling, and they use the ALS challenge. Maybe this is just me. This is why I've like.
Well, I think it might be like sort of two sides of the same coin, right? You can have virtue signaling that is a negative connotation where you're trying to bring other people down to pull yourself up in another group, is essentially what we were saying before. But there is something to be said for that. You could signal in a positive way, and there is an actual virtue there. So like right now, Markiplier put out pretty
much pejorative. I don't see it in any positive way personally.
Well, you might not call it virtue signaling then, right? But it's the same. It follows the same rules, but you're doing something positive with it instead of something negative with it. You might not call it virtue signaling anymore. Yeah, that's fine. It might deserve its own name, its own merit, but that doesn't mean that it's not kind of the same thing, right? So, like, if I say, let's take Markiplier, for example. Markiplier today came out with a video about SCPs, and somebody is trying to trademark SCP and essentially be able to take over the entire site, which is just a community-based thing. Is he virtue signaling by making a video about it? And is it virtue signaling to pass that along? Do I care? Like, if I pass that along, does that mean I'm virtue signaling towards Markiplier? Maybe. It could be. It's possible that I am.
Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Him making the video, I can't make an argument that's virtue signaling. He's trying to raise awareness to something. He's making a video about a topic, right? Sure. Now, if you just retweet it and you're like, "Hey, senpai, look at me, Markiplier. I agree with you," virtue signaling. And retweeting sometimes can be considered that, right? You're and this is what I'm saying. We all kind of do it in that regard. Hey, I'm retweeting this. This is kind of an implicit thing that I'm supporting that particular thing. But I like when people retweet stuff and they actually add a comment to it. And again, I understand my own hypocrisy here that I don't always do that. I'm just saying I like when people do that. They retweet and they say, this person here makes a good point. Let me explain why they make a good point. Or, I'm going to add this to the discussion. I like those better because then you're not really virtue signaling. What you're doing is you're adding to the dialogue. It's just because I am, let's say, morally outraged or something, or at least I have something about the comment that I like that I'm retweeting it for. I think it's always beneficial to add to it rather than just retweet it. But again, I get my own hypocrisy.
Well, I think that kind of depends, right? You might not have anything to add.
Yeah, that's true too.
Like I can say that, I found SCP through these people, and then I actually really enjoyed it more from this thing. And I don't want to get taken down, but the best way for that to not happen isn't to make my own stuff about it, but it's to share and get Markiplier's information about it out because he did a better job of presenting that information than I ever could. So
Yeah, no, I'm good.
At that point,
yeah.
the thing is that might not be my reasoning. You can't really know that it's virtue unless it's like really obvious. And in some cases, it is really obvious. But in this situation, it's maybe not so obvious. I could be virtue signaling. I might not be if you want to define them as different things. Or it could be the same side of, or the opposite side of the same coin, where maybe I am virtue signaling, but it is a raising awareness type situation where I'm virtue signaling that I have this virtue. I want people to be aware of this. So I'm signaling out to other people that, hey, pay attention to this thing. So
we had something very similar in the community. What happened? Do you remember back in the FE core thing?
Yeah.
What about that? How would you relate that to virtue signaling then? Because again, I don't use the term that way because I think it's a pejorative term. But for example, when FE core was false flagging people, they tried to strike me, they tried to strike Reds, Slice Sparkane, I think Fight the Flat Earth, a few other people. When FE core was doing all that, we were raising awareness to it. Now maybe there may not have been any value to do that other than people just get on board and going, yeah, we're denouncing this. I don't know how much effect it actually had on FE core, but it might have. See, I think raising awareness where a whole bunch of people are denouncing, going, FE core, what you're doing is unethical, and expressing moral outrage in a healthy manner. I'm not going to throw that under the label of virtue signaling, because there is a healthy expression of moral outrage to be had when there actually was something to be morally outraged about, like unethical behavior by false flagging.
Yeah, so essentially what it comes down to is whether something is raising awareness. Like essentially the difference between raising awareness about an actual issue and virtue signaling is whether or not there's actually an issue. Whether or not your argument has merit or not.
Yeah.
Right? So if I'm saying that, FE core is doing this thing and we need to raise awareness about it because YouTube needs to be made aware of it, and we have no other way of contacting them, then I have an argument and I have something to stand by, and I can demonstrate that. But if I say, this person's transphobic, and I can't demonstrate that the person's transphobic, then my argument has no merit.
Yeah, I'll make a hypothetical.
So that would be raising awareness versus virtue. Right. So, but if let's say somebody was transphobic and I go ahead and say, hey, this person's transphobic, here's why, I'm not virtue signaling anymore. I'm raising awareness about this person's poor behavior.
Well, if they're actually being outright, overtly, yeah.
Yeah, if they are. That's what I mean. As long as I can demonstrate and I have a reasonable argument, and I'm not trying to shut down conversation, because shutting down conversation is problematic otherwise.
Let's try to make a concrete example. Well, okay, so let me make a hypothetical example of something that we've seen to be concrete in other forms. But is Smitty out there? Is my mod Smitty there?
I haven't seen Smitty yet.
I use Smitty for all my examples. He's just my little bitch boy. I love Smitty. Smitty,
use Riley. Riley's mad at me.
Use Riley? No, I love Riley.
Yeah, Riley's mad at me. Throw Riley under the bus. I'm kidding.
All right. No, I'm going to use Smitty because he can't defend himself now. So let's say Smitty was in a video or something, and he's just going off in this anti-Semitic tirade, right? He's just saying all kinds of things that there is unquestionably anti-Semitic, to the point where it's just not even a matter of interpretation. He's just outright saying, bad, horrible things about Jews, right? I'm Jewish, right? And bicultural. And of course, people know that I detest Holocaust deniers. I will never have any of that discussion on my channels. I think it's beyond morally reprehensible to try to change history. Now, if I call Smitty out on that and I say, look, people, look what Smitty's doing here. He's being very anti-Semitic. I'm not going to throw that under the virtue signaling by me trying to point out something that actually exists, right? Now, let's say Smitty just happened to say a comment that has a little bit of amphibity to it, or something that's just, a bad joke maybe, right? Or something along those lines that's not really something that you need to be morally outraged for. But you have Cheshire over here going, hey, Steve, your mod Smitty over here, he's happy to say this, and that means that, he's now a member of the SS kind of thing, right? I don't want to use the N-word here because I'll instantly get demonetized, but the N-word relating to the SS. But, that's what she would be doing, is then saying something, and then people would be virtue signaling on that, right? And she'd be virtue signaling to all the people. Oh, look,
and I'm trying to get the mob going.
Outraged over something that should be morally outraged,
And I'm trying to get the mob going. So in some cases, I'm trying to get people, like other people. I'm signaling for other people to jump on this person for whatever reasons. Yeah. So I'm like, hey guys, look over here.
I love you, Raleigh. I'm just going to remove that only because I don't want anybody to take it the wrong way, because I know people people are bad with this kind of stuff. I know even in jokes they'll say, oh, look what somebody in the moderator said over at Steve's channel. Trust me, I just ridiculous, the things I bring up, which again goes into virtue signaling, right? Oh, they said this, therefore they must be that, even though they have, what's that C word again? Context missing.
Yeah. Starbucks makes a good point. Oh,
I was just going to point out that all this works the other direction too. If it's a group of people with a bad moral value, they can. I wouldn't go call it virtue signaling, but the concept is the same. About, hey, we're going to rally and we're going to attack these people over here because we think we don't like the fact that they're do-gooders, for example.
Yeah, or if their morals or their ethics are inconsistent, or they feel like the ends justifies the means in a lot of cases. So a group might virtue signal, like one person might virtue signal to this group, and that group will do whatever it takes because the ends justify the means because it's justified in their mind because of whatever they feel that their morals are or what their obligations are towards that community or that moral as a group. And Starbuck made a good point, and I think the word specifically gets to the point of what we were saying was virtue signaling is a tool to manufacture outrage, to
yes,
whip
absolutely.
up the mob. So, and I think manufacture outrage is like a really good way of saying that.
Yeah, I think that's actually, so there's a couple of things where people will actually virtue signal them, either the super chat, but the main reasons are to, one, punch up and say, notice me, senpai, notice me and say, hey, look, I agree with you, help me out, pull me up by, you're more popular than I am, and I'm agreeing with you, therefore promote me. That's virtue signaling. And the other thing is to, what was it? You just said,
manufacture outrage.
Yeah,
manufacturing outrage.
So it's like, let's get the group together and just keep stirring the pot, because that fabricates views by more being morally outraged about fabricated things. There you go. They get views out of it, right? So I think that's a lot more prevalent on YouTube than you find on other.
One is selfish. Yeah, one is selfish and one is selfless. It's the difference between something that's we're going to go to D&D terms. Something that is considered evil and something that is considered good.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. And then in modern D&D, if I'm not mistaken, the difference in evil and good is if it benefits yourself versus benefits of other people, or something along those lines.
Pretty much, yeah. Essentially, yeah. That's what it does come down to. Helios 575 for 5. Difference between raising awareness and virtue signaling is the need to deceive to make your point. If you need to be dishonest, you're virtue signaling. For some things,
I agree with that. There's a couple caveats, but I agree with that. I do think virtue signaling is, generally speaking, usually dishonest, right? Because you're virtue signaling for the sake of virtue signaling to try to be noticed, or to, like I said, to manufacture, or just to manufacture controversy. That to me is a dishonest agent automatically. If you're virtue signaling to do that, you are a dishonest agent. You're done. But I also think a lot of people virtue signal unintentionally, which means you're not a dishonest agent. I think we all maybe in some broad version of the term virtue signal unintentionally do it, maybe. I think as social creatures, because it comes from evolutionary biology, right? When people are doing peacocking, right? Or they're signaling to people for evolutionary reasons, like, hey, look, I'm a better mate than this other person for whatever these reasons, right? That's, I think, a lot of virtue signalings come from signal theory and evolutionary biology for that very reason. You want to be noticed by someone. That's why you virtue signal. There's no reason to virtue signal if you're not trying to get somebody to notice. Who sits there
and there's
in
a difference
their own
between
house without it just crying to themselves, oh, look what this person did, if nobody's watching or listening. You have to have a signal going to you to somebody else in order to virtue signal, right?
Yeah, there's a also, like, comparatively, whether or not you actually care about the topic, like whether or not your moral, it's because of your morals or because you want other people to notice your morals, right? So it's like, one of the examples I think I read was, oh, this person doesn't use makeup that was tested on animals, and they tell their friends this every time even though it's completely unrelated, you're virtue signaling. You look at me, my morals are so good because I don't do this thing, even though it's completely unrelated to anything that's going on. And because otherwise nobody would know if you didn't tell them.
Yeah, well, and I think that's the big differentiation. Again, raising awareness versus stirring up.
Yeah, if you're talking about it when it's appropriate, right? If you're talking about how, I don't use makeup that is tested on animals or uses any animal byproduct, then there is a time and place to have that discussion. But if you're bringing it up to your friends every single time you pull out lip gloss, or if they're pulling out lip gloss and you're like, that's not the right one, you're virtue signaling. You're not actually helping at that point. You're just annoying everybody.
Yeah, actually, cosmetics is a big thing. I worked obviously at Kohl's, so I'm familiar with cosmetics, a little bit. And
you're probably more familiar than I am.
Well, what it is when when you're talking about like cosmetics not being on animals, right? So when people say, I only use cosmetics that have not been tested on animals, right? There's actually a term for that. It's called conspicuous conservatism. And conspicuous conservatism would be you pointing out the fact that you don't use a certain brand or you don't buy a certain brand for that very reason, because it's on animals. Now there's something to be said by an activist approach by saying, look, we don't want you to buy this product because it has been used on animals, but that's not what the person is doing. The person is just conspicuously saying this, hey, I don't use this product. I'm a moral person. If you want to be a moral person, you shouldn't buy it. But just by saying it,
it's conspicuous conversation.
Yeah.
There's a groupthink too when you're virtue signaling. Like another example might be an incel. An incel might go onto a forum and be like, "Oh well, no, there's just a woman here," or like, "Oh, women don't like me. Woe is me." Da 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 da. You're virtue signaling to that group potentially. And the thing is in that kind of a groupthink, you might be calling in the other incels. I think I saw this a little bit on Rachel Oates' channel when she was covering the MGTOW stuff. There were people from MGTOW that were going there virtue signaling because her videos were getting shared amongst their community. Right? So there are people in that community who are going to comment and harass her and give her a hard time because it virtue signaled, because they knew that people from their community were going to be looking at her videos and they'd see them in the comment section. And so, and that's where groupthink can start getting into really real dangerous territory, because now they're going to try and shut her video down theoretically. Like, I'm going into a hypothetical. I'm not saying they did do this, but they might go and try and shut her channel down, or like go and send a bunch of dislikes, or go and mass report it for harassment, like false flag it. And the group will be like, oh, yeah. And they might not have even watched the video. And they're trying to shut down the conversation. They're trying to shut down the
I've seen that happen part of it, too. Yes. They don't even watch the video. But I get comments like that all the time. I was just talking to Chesh about this the other day. I got a comment. I'm like, this person didn't even watch the video. They didn't watch the video. No,
yeah, exactly. But they could be virtue signaling. They could be virtue signaling to a lot of different people. So it's possible that, like, you might not go and do it yourself. You might be like, oh, well, that's stupid. But you're not going to speak out against it. And why? Is it because it's stupid and you don't really care? Or is it because you're afraid that if you say, hey, guys, this doesn't seem like a good idea, you're not going to be allowed on their forums anymore? Which, especially when you get into MGTOW and you start getting into incel territory, they're going to bully you. They're going to turn on you, and they're going to drag you drag you way the hell down in the incel situation.
There's another boards out there that exact same way. And ironically, they're called the free thought blog boards.
Oh no.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, but the free thought blogs and stuff like that, they're not free thought. I'm just not. And so, a lot of times if you don't conform to them, you don't say, oh, look, I'm morally outraged because of this, this, and this. And I remember doing Gamergate. I remember doing Elevator Gate. I remember doing, so many different kerfluffles that have happened over the course of 8 years I've seen on YouTube, that if you don't say, oh yeah, I agree with this. You are demonized. You're victimized. I don't want to say victimized. You're demonized and you're invalidated, I guess. You're like, well, your opinion doesn't matter for anything else.
Yeah, and
you
if
don't support this type of thing.
And isn't demonization one of the things that I brought up? They're not coming with their own merit of an argument. They're going to demonize you instead of you, the general term. They're going to demonize a person rather than actually addressing the or coming with an argument. We didn't demonize Ricky. Why would we do that? There's no point. We're not virtue signaling to anybody. There's no reason for us to demonize him. We said that actually like the behavior is problematic, not the person. He can do whatever he wants. Nobody's going to stop him. However, it's negligent of him to do this in this way, and we addressed why it is that way, and here is the correction. We didn't actually say, hey, everybody, look at him. He's got a philosophy thing wrong, because nobody's going to care.
Nobody, even though he's got, I suppose, a background in philosophy, but minor.
Oh, really?
But, yeah, I heard. I mean, I haven't checked into that, but Ozzy was here the other day because he was saying, did Ricky seem to forget anything he learned as an undergrad when he took some philosophy courses? Because like maybe that was.
Oh, that would be interesting. Yeah. I hope we could maybe one day talk him into coming on. That'd be cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, anything's possible. I mean, I have no idea how big a guess we can get, but I'm not going to put any ceiling on anything.
Well, yeah, I don't want to put a ceiling on anything because if you look at for First We Feast, the guys who do Hot Ones were just a side internet show. They weren't even the main show for First We Feast. They were a side project that they worked on. And they started off small, and then they grew and grew and grew over a couple of years. And they've got like Shaq coming on. They had Charlize Theron come on. I think they might have actually had Ricky on too, didn't they? I don't remember.
Yeah, no, like I said, I'm not putting any ceiling on anything. I'm going to go full barrel, and I've already got some people in mind that I think are possible. But okay, so get back on virtual signaling a little bit. A couple other things I want to talk about virtual signaling. I've seen this happen too, and virtual signaling when you're doing a debate, and part of the debate is actually the act of persuasion, right? Rhetoric is the act of persuasion. And so there's nothing wrong with rhetoric. There's nothing wrong with persuasive arguments. There's nothing wrong with pathos type arguments. So you have pathos, ethos, and logos. And pathos is trying to persuade people through emotions and other things. That's not actually bad. People do that to try to debate. I get it. But when you're using things like virtual signal in a debate, like saying, here's my argument. And by the way, did you know I just gave $100 to charity? Blah, blah, blah. That's virtue signaling, right? When you're doing something, when you say something that to express how moral you are in order to persuade your argument and to bolster your argument, that is virtue signaling.
Yeah, because it's not relevant.
It's not relevant. I see this people, like, I'm trying to give examples without giving out specific names, but I'm such a great caregiver, and therefore everything I say from here on out is true, right? Or I love animals, therefore, all my arguments are true. These are all forms.
Or, well, look at I'm such a morally good person. I donated to the animal shelter, but like donating to the animal shelter doesn't inherently make you a good person. It means you did a good thing, or you did a positive thing to those animals. Hell, you could have done a negative thing to help somebody. So you could essentially be like, yeah, I donated like 3 cases of food to the animal shelter, but I stole it from the pet food store down the road.
But do you agree that there might be people that just donated for the fact that they can say, look, I donated. I really don't give a shit about it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I donated.
People virtue signal about fucking recycling.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That same thing. Yeah, you could say that. Like, look, hey, look at my garbage cans. Look how full they are with cardboard, and this one has trash, and this one has body parts. I mean, so yeah. I mean, you definitely can virtue signal that way. Because hey, look, I'm a moral, upstanding, good citizens because I recycle. Well, you believe it or not, we do recycle here. We have two cans, one for recyclable. Actually, we have 3. We have one for recyclables. We have one for trash. We have one for
organic,
right, crass and stuff like that. And so we separate it out in the kitchen. So we have one for just trash stuff, and we have one for cans and things of that nature. I've never mentioned that on air before, I don't think. I think this is the first time I've ever told anybody that. Why?
Yeah,
who gives a shit?
Yeah, I mean that's a I wouldn't even think to mention it because it's a province-wide expectation. all of
Yeah, it's pretty
all of
prevalent in
Ontario
California,
is
yeah.
like that. You have to. It's part of the rules.
But I mean, they can't really. It's hard to kind of mandate certain things. But I mean, most of California, if you live in California, that's generally acceptable, right? So
Oh, they'll
it's kind of silly
legitimately
to
like
virtue signal that because, like, well, they'd be like, well, who doesn't do that, man? That's just,
yeah, they've actually rolled something out where they provide you with a black, blue, and green bin, and you have to use a black, blue, and green bin, and the different garbages are picked up on different days. And if your garbage doesn't have, if the bin doesn't have the right kind of garbage in it, they won't take it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true. They won't. Okay, there's another one I want to talk about. Slacktivism. I like this one. Slacktivism. And I see this happen as well too. When people will decree against something or decry against something in name only, it's a form of hypocrisy, right? When people say, "Hey, this person or that," for example, we use like veganism. They'll like, you know what, veganism is the way to go, and just call out people for eating meat, right? But they're not actually doing anything to help eliminate the problem with how we treat animals. They're not actually doing anything in real life. They're just saying, hey, people don't eat meat. Well, anybody can say that. You're not actively doing anything to reduce the amount of animal consumption. And by the way, a lot of them will still buy meat, but say, well, we shouldn't eat meat, veganism is the way to go. If you eat meat, you're a bad person. But you know what? I do like my occasional chicken. I see that too. But slacktivism is basically, let's say Cheshire was, let's see here, I'm trying to think of an example. Let's say that, I can't think of a good example to be used here, except for people that call out certain people for something, but they only pick on Cheshire, for example. Cheshire did something that they didn't like. They're just going to call Cheshire out for it. They don't care about anything else related to anybody else doing the same thing. They don't care about the problem as a whole. They just care for the fact that Cheshire did it, and they're not actively trying to change anything if there's something that needs to be changed as far as activism, right? That's called slacktivism. That's virtue signaling. Oh, look what Chesh did. Yeah. She's a bad person, but I'm not going to go out of my way to even try to actually change things.
Solve the problem that is
exactly.
what you're claiming is whatever behavior I'm guilty of, or whatever behavior that I'm okay with. So like I could probably think of an example. Let's say I'm having a conversation about language. I have a pet peeve, and that pet peeve is I absolutely hate trying to have a conversation about language and not being able to use the words we're talking about. That's a pet peeve. So if I use a racial slur because I'm talking about racial slurs, and somebody virtue signals that says, oh, hey, Chesh used a racial slur, they're not doing anything to actually help racism. They're actually harming it and harming any cause that's trying to stop racism, because you can't move forward with something without discussing the issue. So instead of...
earlier in the episode too, that same exact thing. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so instead of actually assisting and maybe contributing to the conversation, they're trying to villainize somebody, to virtue signal to a mob to come and attack me for using a racial slur, which they have disingenuously misrepresented the context in which I am using it to form some kind of narrative for whatever that reason may be. And then it's not helpful. It doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help people who... It's completely counterproductive. So that scenario essentially encompasses everything. So at some point, if that happens, you guys know exactly where to come to be like, oh yeah, you're doing this thing. You're not helping deal with racism. You're not helping, because what I'm doing is not inherently racist. I'm talking about a word, and I'm talking about the history of a word or how it's used in society and language, and having that information lets you essentially know what to do about it in the future, or how to approach it in the future, or different ways we can tell the difference between when somebody is actually being racist and when somebody is actually discussing or just using the word because it's part of their culture.
Yeah, and I definitely think that because these things are counterproductive, when we see people doing that, that's the people that I personally try to avoid, right? Because they're not helping, they're harming. And I don't want to be around people that harm. I want to be around people that help. And so when I see people that are virtue signaling merely because they're trying to raise their social standing, punch up, or to cause discord to stir controversy for things, that's harming any real things that there are. They're obviously legit activist things that most of us would probably support, right? Most of us are for equal rights, or I like what's called equity rights, but we're for that. We're against animal cruelty, right? I mean, people do exist that are fond of cruelty to animals, right? We were on Drunken Peasants the other day, and they were talking about these cockfighters that will put razor blades on the roosters, right? Which is just beyond comprehension that anybody would even watch this. And one of the spectators actually got killed by it because the rooster got away accidentally from the handler and cut the person's stomach and killed them. But most normal people are against animal cruelty, I think. And so there's an activist approach to be for people to actively try to shut down these types of barbaric animal cruelty things like cockfighting, bulldog fighting, Michael Vick type things. I get that, right? So when people are actively harming those things by virtue signaling, that makes it more difficult to shut down those kinds of things or to promote awareness. Those are not the people I want to have around. And you can apply that with any topic, I think.
Oh yeah,
you agree, Chet?
It can apply to pretty much any topic. It doesn't have this is a sort of a unilateral kind of thing. You can do it with a positive topic.
Yeah,
because arguably, actually, in fact, it's usually better to do it. Like it's more disguised if you're doing it as with a positive topic, because then you're like, well, yeah, racism is wrong. Yeah, thanks, tips. We got that. That's why we're talking about it.
Yep. Okay. And there's one last thing I want to talk about, and that was in virtue signaling called radical chic that Tom Wolfe came up with back in the early 70s. And radical chic basically involves a lot of political stuff, but it's a band, and to me, it's kind of a bandwagon thing that whatever's politically popular at the time, people just jump on that to virtue signal to the group, right?
Yeah, a good example of that would be voting for Hillary Clinton because she's a woman.
Virtue signaling. Yeah, that
would be a good example of that. Yeah.
But there's also things that, there's also a political expediency for people to go, like, for example, even climate change, right? Most people believe in climate change, but if you want a virtue signal to somebody to say, hey, look, I'm moral. Hey, climate change is bad. Boo, Trump. Okay. When you're not really raising awareness, what you're doing is virtue signaling that, yeah, you're with the whole group, people that, because it is politically right now a hot topic. So when you're radical chic, you're just basically jumping on something because it's the popular thing of the zeitgeist to do.
Right.
So
if you want to use my Hillary Clinton example, you should be voting for somebody who you think will be a good candidate. You should be voting for somebody who you agree with what they want to do and you think they're actually going to do it. You shouldn't vote for somebody because of their ethnicity, and you shouldn't vote for somebody because of their gender. You should vote for somebody who's going to be good at the job.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And that's the big point when it comes to political things, when you're saying, hey, I have a litmus test, and my litmus test is that the next president has to have these conditions. Whether it be a woman, whether it be abortion rights, whether it be whatever. I think that's a days in a precedent, because if you have a litmus test when you're only voting for a president for one thing, you end up with Trump. Because I am convinced that most people voted for Trump because they didn't like the alternatives, and it was a pushback against the fact that the DNC put Hillary up there, and people have lived through the Clinton age knows there was a lot of controversies, a lot of problems. They didn't want to see that again, and I think that. If you say, well, my litmus test is that it's not that I want a woman in the office, it's that I didn't want Hillary in the office. Yep. There you go.
Oh yeah, there is definitely lots of reasons to or to not vote for somebody. I'm saying that voting for somebody because they're a woman only is virtue signaling. Because you're talking about an ideal, not whether or not she's actually going to be good at the job. Because being a woman is completely irrelevant to the job itself. Being a male or a female doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Now, it could have an impact. It could have an impact in a couple of different ways. But now you're not just voting for them because they're a woman. You're voting for them because being a woman, they'll have these kinds of impacts and they might have these kinds of understandings about these kinds of issues. That's not virtue signaling. That's, you have reasons that because they're a woman, they may this, and this. Now you have reasons behind that. It's not just because they're a woman. But if it's just because they're a woman, you're virtue signaling. Look at me, I'm a feminist. I voted for a woman.
Well, yeah, I mean, in politics, that's a lot of what they do in order to raise fundraising. That's actually the whole thing for Radical Chic, is when you have like a liberal party going, hey, you know what? We're going to have a bunch of people for dinner and a big extravagant party, and we're going to promote, you know, this huge thing.
Well, it's a rally, and a rally is a giant mob mentality virtue signal.
Or some issue, right?
Yeah,
that is virtue signaling.
But at the same time, a rally can also be
Trump or something, you know.
Right, but a rally can also be used to raise awareness. So you can actually raise awareness using virtue signaling and mob mentality to raise awareness of an issue.
Correct.
So, like, if you've got a woman and you're virtue signaling to, we should support this woman because she's a woman, but she's using that platform that you're virtue signaling for her to raise awareness about climate change, and she's actually trying to raise awareness about climate change, then you've essentially virtue signaled about something else to boost somebody up so they can actually raise awareness to another issue. Complicated, isn't it?
Yeah, very. Yeah, so social dynamics is complicated. As the social creatures, you know, we still are trying to figure out, you know, how we relate to people and why we relate to people and what is social normative when it comes to signaling theory and why we want to be noticed, right? I mean, people on the internet, a lot of people say, well, you know, you're on the internet, therefore you have an ego and you want to be noticed. Well, not necessarily. Like, I think everybody has a little bit of ego, obviously, but the thing is that we have something to say, we want to get it out, and we hope people listen. But if they don't, that's fine too. But anybody who
I'm just a helper
on the internet, well, this goes back to the thing before. Why would you virtual signal if you're just by yourself, right? You can't signal to anybody if you're just sitting by yourself. So when we go on the internet and we talk about things, we want to raise awareness for things. We want to
our goal is to push forward discussion.
Yes, facilitate the conversation, explain the conversations. It's not to virtue signal to people to say, hey, look how cool, you know, we are as ethical creatures. But that's I see it a lot on YouTube though. Videos of just people going, oh, look at me, I'm a peacock, but such and such is bad.
My favorite is when it's the most obvious. My favorite is when it's the most obvious thing. Like, I don't know, when there's a partnership, both people should get paid. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, tips. That's virtue signaling.
Virtue signaling. Chesh gets paid by the Superchats for this particular show. So
the virtue signaling would be
that's not virtue signaling. That's actually letting people know you actually make money off this now. Dave makes money off this now.
The closer thing would be Puck makes money off the Superchats, because now you're playing on people's emotions to give money.
He gets toys.
Well, yeah. So like, I get money that gets spent on the dog. So if you super chat, then Puck gets stuff. So that would arguably virtue signaling, because what you're doing is you're playing on the emotions of people who like animals to compel them to give you money.
That's why I legit put the argument in the video description. I'm like, so the actually it'd be better like this. If you don't super chat, you hate dogs.
Yeah.
You hate you're you're not an animal lover. You are a bad person because you hate dogs. And by the way, yes, you are a bad person if you hate dogs, because dogs are better than most people. I'm sorry, they really are. I love dogs.
Most dogs are better than most people. Yes,
they are, man. They're so.
There are some nasty dogs out there, though.
Well, yeah, but I mean, again, you're always gonna have statistical outliers, but on the whole, I mean, I love puppies and doggies. So
I mean, that also might determine on what you consider a dog. Are you talking about the pets, or are you talking about like any kind of, like, does that include jackals?
No, I'm talking about
wild dogs.
Animal. domesticated.
Yeah, see, like, now we get into a discussion.
I'm not going to go out in the wild and go, hey, Wolfie, come here, let me pet you, right? You're a good puppy. No, I ain't that stupid.
Oh, yeah, good boy. You do realize, like, if I was
up
up beside, like, a full-grown gray wolf, I would be like, oh, you puppy.
But we appreciate it very much. Puck appreciates it, so we thank you guys. But anyways, I want to get. I think we're at the 90-minute mark. Do you want to do maybe a little? Because I don't think we have anything else planned. Do you want to do any quick Q&A or anything? Or Dave, do you have anything to add? What do you guys want to do? I'm gonna turn over. I'm gonna let Chesh, because Chesh, I'm just the main host right now. So Chesh, we'll see how well you do, because everything's yours anyways. So why don't you just take over everything?
I kind of already do. I just puppet Steve from behind the scenes.
Well,
Steve's actually been dead for 5 months.
I'm CGI.
Steve is CGI. I animate him in real time.
I don't do anything, right? I mean, you can be honest, Chesh. I am just a lazy nothing that I don't ever.
Steve does about 5% of the work.
Yeah.
Steve does about 5% of the work for these shows.
You're being very generous. Thank you. That was very nice of you. I was thinking more like 2.5%, but
2.5%, and then like 10% on
at least
Bool.
2.5%, right? I mean,
no, I was gonna give more to Bool because I wasn't gonna say I did 95.
Yeah. Well, you are 95% of everything.
Everything, the entirety of the internet.
So your ass is 90%, 5% of you. You're 95% of the show. Ergo, the show is 95% ass.
Yeah. This show is ass, confirmed.
Yeah, this show is ass. So, but anyways, what do you guys got for us? If you guys want, take 5 minutes to kind of what you guys want to know about non sequitur. You want to know about our plans for this channel, the Great Debate Community channel. Bullinator's got some stuff coming up. Cheshire's got some stuff on her channel coming up. How's your interviews?
Good. I got sent a lot of information to go through. A lot of information to go through. So I'm working on that. I also have I didn't send them to Bool ahead of time. I guess I should have done that, shouldn't I?
What about Bool?
That's usually helpful. If you want me to do something,
I didn't think about it until just now. I was like, we should show those, but I didn't think about it until just now. I'm going to send you on Twitter. Actually, I'll just send you on Discord. I got Discord up.
Paraguay wants to know how long to have to turn over the books. Well, technically, it's immediately.
Now.
I'm sorry. The channel was immediate. The books were 14 days from the 23rd, so I think it expires on Wednesday. On a Wednesday, if I'm mistaken. So it's 14 days from the 23rd.
Can you show these, please? Because I'm doing these as an art special for people. So just send me an email that has the picture that you want, and I can do these for $30. I will send you back my PayPal link. You pay me, and I'll do these up. They're going to be $30 a pop. Essentially, no matter what the picture is that you send me, unless it's got more than one person in it. If it's more than one person, then it would be $60. $30 per person in the picture, and animals. I can do animals also.
Do you have an ETA of the expectation of the potential resolution of everything for NSS? Not really, but hopefully by end of next month, sometime next month. So what are we gonna look at? We're gonna look at some of your artwork again.
Yeah.
Cool. This is where Dave makes the big money. This is where he pays for his keep.
Save us, Bool! The Primerlinian. Oh my god!
I said this yesterday. I got my first check from Reasons to Believe, and it's just a reimbursement check. But look at that. So, and by the way, this is already spent because I already gave it to the producer. So whatever.
Yay! Yay! But I think that the stuff coming up on my channel, I have a TLDR for non sequitur, but I'm going to wait to bring that out until after the show actually airs. Because I would rather have like the TLDR come to an end, like done. It's now going, so I'll probably do it once we actually have the show in our hot little hands. Is when that'll come out. I have the commissions for what Bool's about to show going on, and I have a couple of interviews working on in the background. I'm just doing a little bit of reformatting, so specifically because I don't want to be like drama based. I would rather talk about like their experience by addressing their experience without having the drama of whoever we're necessarily talking about detracting from the actual experience of the person. Because I noticed that was happening a little bit with the ones that I did before, where people were getting bogged down in very specific details and arguing about details rather than talking about the overarching experience that this person had. So I'm working on trying to kind of remove, like, figuring out how to take that drama out of the situation, so that way people can look at this person's situation objectively and then decide where they think it might apply if they're looking around. That people will probably know who we're talking about, though.
So there you
Probably.
go. There's the images.
Yay!
It's
That's
so
cool.
like modern goth kind of thing. It's just like, yeah,
That's very cool.
badass.
Yeah, so if you guys want these done, $30 a pop, just send me the picture. And it's $30 per person or animal in the picture. So if you have a picture of like your dog and your cat and they're like side by side, I'll do like the left side of one and the right side of the other, and it'll just be 60 because you're getting two. So just email me. I will put my email in the chat.
All right. So, anyways, guys, I'm kind of don't know where else to go today.
And if you want like a character, by the way, if you want a character like the goblin that I did, then you actually need to tell me what the character is. Because if you just want to be a goblin, then you can also be a goblin. Just tell me you want to be a goblin, and I'll make you into a goblin.
But I don't want to be a goblin. You're the goblin.
Oh, listen, there's a smoblin portion of the smob. There might be people in the community that also would like to be goblins.
Really? So your smog goblin or your what is it? Your smog army?
Smoblins.
Smoblins. They want to be goblins.
Maybe.
Anybody else identify as a goblin? I don't think so. I think you're the only one.
Oh, that's okay. But that doesn't mean you don't have to identify as something to want basically a filter picture. Just because somebody has that dog filter picture doesn't mean that they want to be a dog.
I don't want to be an ogre. No.
Make Steve a goblin.
Like no, I'll play like a blood.
Hey, I didn't say the picture had to be of you. If you want to pay me to do a picture of somebody else, you can send me that picture.
Yeah, I don't want to be a goblin. Well, Riley wants to be a kobold. Can you do kobolds?
Steve as Gandalf. I could do Steve as Gandalf.
No, I don't want to be Steve as Gandalf.
That would be actually probably easy.
That would be really easy, yeah. I just have to give him a hat.
I already have a picture of me as Gandalf.
Longer beard, hat, and like a pipe sticking out the side.
No, you've seen my Twitch thing where I had it was me as Gandalf, right? You saw that, didn't you?
Yeah.
You never saw that photo? Oh, you did. Okay.
Yeah, I've seen it.
I don't remember who did it, but so. Anyways, let's wrap it up then. If nobody's got anything else, I think, like I said, I think we've done enough questions where people kind of know what's going on. But if you have anything, message me directly. Message Chesh. We're happy to answer questions. But I gotta tell you something. It has been nice in the last couple of weeks how much things have died down. I used to be inundated with messages, and I got to tell you, I'm waking up pretty much nothing.
Waking up with Twitter not exploding is not having to go through like 117 messages every morning is nice.
People asking about non-sec, questions have already been answered, and so there's nothing left to even ask about. So I mean, the only thing I'll get in the morning is I'll get like maybe something from Sweet Heathen, something from you, but other than that, it's been really quiet. So maybe I'm just having withdrawals. I'm not used to things being so died down. I'm used to like waking up and like on Facebook, you see like IMs across the board. You go to your G plus, and all of a sudden, it's all black writing over here, which means you haven't checked your messages. It's all on Twitter. You're like 1,000 notifications. 1,000. I mean, all the time was 1,000 plus notifications. Now I go there, it's like 50. I think the highest I had in the last couple of days was like 300 something. So it's like, yeah, it's considerably less. And so anyways, are you muted, Chesh?
Yeah. I'm using my time to eat breakfast and watch non sequiturs or set up non sequitur stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you know what? Before we do wrap up, Intrigue Feline says that In Time had a little bit about non sequitur today. S is their wrap up, quite brief. I was aware of that, but I don't know what the heck they had to say about it, so I don't know. But if you want to give me the timestamp, that would be really appreciative. Yeah, I'll check it out. Yeah, I think a lot of it is wrapping up. I don't know what else to be said on it. I know there's a lot of people out there running their own, nonsense about it. But look, I got to tell you, the only people that actually know the actual facts are going to be somebody like myself, Cheshire, the lawyers, Glenn, the people that are intricately involved in the lawsuit. They're the ones that are actually going to know a lot more than these people.
Way to imply that I'm involved in the lawsuit.
Well, no, but you're privy to all the information.
I am privy to all the information, and that's essentially because I'm partner now, so I kind of have to be.
Yeah. She knows all the things.
She knows all. She knows where all the bodies are buried now. It used to be this Dave. Now, see, it used to be this Dave I had to be concerned about, right? Like Dave, don't tell where the bodies are buried. Now I got Cheshire who knows everything, so she can destroy me in a heartbeat just with like a couple words.
People are gonna wonder who you mean by Dave. Some people don't know my real name, which is kind of funny because it's not like I keep it a big secret.
Yeah, well, okay, Bullinator. Yeah, I mean it's so funny that people actually think we have some deep dark secrets, right? It's like if anything was like that, Bullinator would be the primary person to know because he's produced the show for a year and a half.
I kind of think it's a little bit funny that people have been trying to use my a real name to troll in the comment section. And they're spelling my name wrong, which is really funny. But they're trying to throw me off by it's in one of the comment sections. Really? I don't remember the account that was doing it because I didn't really care. But they referred to me and you, and they used my name, which is kind of funny because I was wondering if there would be given the kind of the virtue signaling we've been talking about, and given the kind of people that we've had to deal with in the past, is that not dead naming me?
No.
That's not the name that I'm by their argument, not by our argument.
No, not even by their argument. I don't think dead name is when you legally have changed your name and then you've used your somebody uses your old name. That's what dead naming is.
Well, yeah, but I don't use my legal name because this isn't. I think I could probably finagle that stupid argument.
First real argument. Sorry, Chesh.
I think I could finagle that stupid argument that essentially you're missing. It'd be the equivalent of. It'd be the. What I'm saying is that would I, by their standard of argumentation, would I be able to say that they're essentially the equivalent of misgendering me?
Oh, I get what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not saying they are. I'm saying could I liken it to that by their argumentation?
There's some similarities to be had. How about that?
Yeah. Okay.
Super chat. Helios, go ahead.
Helios 5005. Careful, Steve. People may cure with your withdrawal. LOL.
They could try, but it's okay. I'm enjoying the reprieve. It's been realized. And by the way, a lot of people said the same thing. A lot of people have said, "Hey, they are so happy that
misappropriation." Thank you. That's it. That's the word I was looking for. It would be misappropriation.
Issue misappropriation. Carice says issue misappropriation. I like that. Yeah. All right, Dave, you ready to take us out, man? You ready to wrap it up, buddy?
Sure, we can go ahead and leave.
Sounds good.
Chesh, you got anything else? All right, guys, thanks for watching this.
Yeah, Steve, can you put my emails? Why did you do that? Okay, well, all right, fuck. I have to get you to change something.
Okay. I can fix things, believe it or not.
Yeah, I believe you.
But
I believe.
Anyways, like I said, share these videos. That's the biggest thing you can do if you want to help us out, is actually share the content, not just like and dislike whatever, because I don't care about that this year. But share the videos out there. Put it on mostly on social media like Facebook and Twitter. Mostly, if you have a Facebook account, it's even better because we want to have more people come into the group, and we're going to be promoting different things over the next couple months. We're making a list of people that are going to help us with that. So. We appreciate it, guys. This was fun. You got questions? Leave your comments in the video description, and we will try to address them. And Cheshire, you know what? On the caffeine corners, do you ever check the comments? Because I maybe need, because a lot of them addressed to you. You should probably and I feel like I'm speaking for you when I'm addressing some of them. So Maybe you want to
Yeah, I read the comments a lot of the times. It usually takes me usually it's not for like the next week that I'll read the comments because I usually let them accumulate, but I don't get notifications because it's your channel, right?
Yeah,
so I don't actually know if you've commented to me on here until a little bit later.
Yeah, I know. All right, guys. So like I said, like, subscribe, and share the videos and comments. We appreciate it. And Dave, take us out. Good night.